Greetings everyone, and welcome to the Realm. I am Nocta-Drem, your guide, here to provide you today's lecture on the Gods of Motus. The lecture for today will concern our first grand deity in the series, one whose voice you may have heard in distant memory. I refer to the grand deity of magic and dreams, Nocta-Drem.
Rest now, dream, and allow the power of the realm to flow through you.
As a grand deity, Nocta-Drem plays a massive part in how the realm operates. Should even one grand deity disappear, the very nature of the realm would alter irrevocably. In this case, Nocta-Drem watches over all magic of the realm. He is the father of spells, rituals, and many other arcane applications. Without him, even the gods would lack their divine power. To do this, Nocta-Drem watches over the plane of magic, known as the Pale Lewis. In this plane is an infinite font of arcane energy that one needs to use magical traits. Now, of course, this applies to spells that I'm sure you are familiar with. But perhaps consider how it affects those who do not use spells. Perhaps a warrior that can use an unnatural ability to stand up even after certain death? Magic? A ranger who is able to camouflage flawlessly in natural terrain without any physical application? Magic? Even the fierce rage of a barbarian that gives them superb resilience? Indeed, magic. And the resource to use such abilities can be found in the Pale Lewis, under the watchful guard of Nocta-Drem, who also watches over the magic's flow from his plane to those who may use it. The Pale Lewis possesses so much power that only a grand deity can remain within it indefinitely. Domitian deities may only remain there for a short time. Anything beneath that? Well, harnessing the raw and unfocused magic has proven to garner some fairly explosive results. As for Nocta-Drem himself, many mortals may hear him in their dreams, speaking in a whispering, calming voice, ushering good omens of pleasant dreams and restful sleep. As for his appearance, every mortal account varies, but each speak of a peacefully burning candle. Some say he adorns a crown of candles. Others claim a candle rests in a hollowed skull. Mortal scholars speculate that Nocta-Drem's appearance to them is dependent on the dream that an individual has. In the Pale Lewis, the consciousness of every slumbering mortal flows freely within. Memories, desires, fears, they all collect here. And as magic flows from the Pale Lewis to fuel a slumbering mortal, so does an amalgamation of these thoughts, creating dreams and nightmares. This talk of dreams and magic would appear to be an odd combination to those who do not know the context. How is that a grand deity, a being whose duty concerns planes and beings beyond the mortal plane, has a title that only applies to mortal kind? Only beings of the mortal plane require sleep. Every other being does not. Why is that important to mention? Well, that is a story indeed worth telling. This tale begins very early on in the creation of the realm itself. We grand deities were the first to appear, after the Integra, in the realm to regulate its functions. Each grand deity had a role to play in keeping the realm moving, and Nocta-Drem ensured that each god had the power to apply their divine abilities. Each god is naturally connected to the Pale Lewis, providing infinite power to achieve their colossal tasks. For more mundane tasks, at least as mundane as you could get at the time, each god created their own servants. As these servants were connected to their god, they too possessed an infinite source of power, even if their potential output was diminished in comparison to their masters. This is important to know, because one needs to understand this fact. Domus was an unexpected development. We all have our theories as to how the plane of mortals was created, but no assured answers. Domus suddenly appeared within the planes of Motus out of nothing. Mortals were an even more surprising development, seemingly appearing from nowhere. Now, why is that so important? Without a connection to a god, mortals had no natural connection to the Pale Lewis, and therefore could not use any of its power. It was a sorry state to witness, but admittedly at the time we grand deities paid little mind to it. We simply let them go about their business. But Nocta-Drem kept a closer watch. For some time, the mortals lived out their days peacefully without interference to or from them. However, this did not last long. In the plane of elements, lorded over by the grand deity Infinihedron, a selection of beings from that plane took notice of mortals with a morbid curiosity. These creatures, named Animat, were focus and living concentrations of elements and matter that came into varieties. The Alanimat were born from elemental energy such as fire, ice, and even acid. Their cousins, the Maranimat, were the same but were focus matter, namely metals like gold, silver, and bronze. These great beasts looked to Domus as an opportunity for discovery and expansion. And so they descended upon Domus with the will to conquer in the name of the Infinihedron. Naturally, these mortals were entirely powerless and hopeless against the Animat, and were easy prey, facing a potentially swift extinction. We grand deities looked at this drama with consideration of intervention. However, the Dominus Impendra, the grand deity of order, deemed it only a natural occurrence, not worth intervention. Mortals would either have to step up to the challenge, or be entirely wiped out. We were advised not to intervene, though Nocta-Drem still watched over them with pity. He wondered how a being disconnected from divinity could ever hope to face a creature who was connected to divinity. They did not have the power of his magic at their disposal. They were too limited. During the final days of mortal kind, one voice called to the heavens for a savior. This voice was that of Udramar Trefaris. Trefaris was a fairly imaginative individual. Seeing what fearsome power the Animat wielded, his mind wished for such power to fight back. Despite his resounding and heartfelt prayers to Nocta-Drem, the god could offer nothing to him. Mortal kind was simply too limited to take any power from the Pale Lewis. In sorrow, Nocta-Drem watched over Trefaris after his last call for grace. That following evening, Trefaris fell to sleep. It was then that Nocta-Drem noticed something peculiar. Trefaris's imagination still dwelled within him as he slept, like faint sparks in darkness. Small, unfocused, and random bursts of wanting remained in the mortal's mind, while all other consciousness remained dormant. In fact, Nocta-Drem noticed this of all mortals. As they slept, they all possessed these faint sparks. But each spark had a different desire, a different wish for more. Upon this discovery, Nocta-Drem decided that it was time for an experiment. He carefully connected each mortal's slumbering consciousness to the Pale Lewis, allowing their sparks of longing to enter into his plane, to form larger bursts of energy. It was the birth of a dream. He watched as these dreams traveled back to Domus to the slumbering mortals in their beds, and witnessed an evolution. In their dreams, they were not limited. Their desires, aspirations, and wonderment allowed them to become something more. Here, mortals were not simply that. They could be anything. Heroes, celebrities, even gods. Nocta-Drem then witnessed the energy of the Pale Lewis slowly turning towards the rivers of dreams. He watched as the energy slowly filled mortal beings with magic. They finally had the ability to use magic. But would they know how to harness it? It turned out that they wouldn't, but Nocta-Drem saw an opportunity to answer a prayer, and so he reached out through the rivers of dreams to the mortal who originally called his name, Udramar Trefaris. Nocta-Drem spoke to Trefaris in his dreams, describing how to harness the newfound energy within him. He taught the numerous activators to project the magic, such as magical words, arcane physical movements, the use of materials within their own world, and the magic simply found within their will. Chafaris woke after a long and well-rested slumber, touched by divinity. He held his hand to a lit candle beside his bed, traced a symbol within the air, and watched as the flame was manipulated in size and direction by his own thoughts. Jafar sprang from his bed and immediately called down the Animat who patrolled his town. 2 descended to him, and they were the most powerful. Anthix, the head of the Elanimat, and Palintris, the head of the Moranimat. Trefaris courageously challenged the two in battle, to which the two Animat guffawed at the idea, but decided to humor him in asking what were the stakes. If the Animat succeeded, then they could continue to destroy the mortals. However, if Trefaris succeeded, the two leaders, along with those who served directly under them, would renounce their godly connection and forever roam in Domus as the mortals do. It would have been a silly challenge for the Animat to agree to, and they could have easily destroyed Trefaris then and there. But during his challenge, Trefaris had snuck in a magic word and a subtle arcane gesture to cast a charm over them. This charm forced the two Animat to be more persuaded to agree to his challenge, and they flew off, giving him 1 day to prepare. For the rest of the day, Trefaris hid away from the eyes of the beasts to practice his newfound magic. He casted fireballs, conjured lightning, healed wounds, and bended minds. When it came time to challenge the Animat, Trefaris produced an awe-inspiring display of power. As the two Animat brought forth pure destructive energy onto him, he produced an impenetrable shield before him. As they flew into the air, he rained down meteors to strike them back down into the earth. As they landed, he summoned a forest of entangling vines to restrain them. And as they struggled, he bent their minds to concede and accept defeat. As promised, the two Animat and their immediate followers had shed their divine connection, thus becoming like mortals. Anthix and his Elanimat followers despised the mortal kind for their fall. Palintris and his Moranimat, conversely, gained a newfound respect for the mortals for their impressive adaptation to adversity. The remaining Animat, not under the direct leadership of the two, returned to the Infinihedron's plane, leaving the mortals alone. As generations passed, the now mortal Animat became the chromatic and metallic beings now known as dragons. As for Trefaris, he used his wisdom to teach his people how to use the magic now present within their beings. He became the patron saint of magic, and after his passing became the very first prodigy, evolving into a worthy servant of Nocta-Drem. While the pool of energy for mortals was not infinite, they could look forward to regaining all of their spent power every time they slept. A slumber now graced with the miracle of dreams and the grand deity who took that concept as part of his title. And that concludes today's lecture. Take from it what you will. Until next time, farewell.